Going back to reiterate where you were at, I guess, on the day of the assassination, when you found out that the president had been killed, actually.
It was about 1:40 p.m. I was in the 10th grade English class at Charleston High School, and they came over the intercom and said that the president had been assassinated in Dallas. And there was a general malaise that went over everybody. We'd never experienced anything like that in our lifetime. We were only 15 years old in that class. And since I had been working for a this radio station, which was formerly in this building, my station manager called at around 2 o'clock and told the principal he'd like me out of school and didn't like me up there for an emergency broadcast. So my mother came and picked me up. I couldn't drive, and she brought me up here and dropped me off, and for the next 3 hours I sat in the back room in this building and read from a teletype exactly what was coming across at the moment it came across. And I read hundreds of articles, dozens of articles, and information about the assassination, what they knew. Everybody was in a complete uproar. No one knew what was going on because we didn't have cable news network or any of the big ways that you gather information now. It was sketchy at best.
This on the air.
Well, I was only 15 years old, and emotionally I wasn't too heavy. I was just a kid, but I did have a deep voice at the time, and I came up and did the job that they asked me to do, and that was to read everything on the air. It was sort of a state of confusion. Nobody knew what was happening. Lyndon Johnson was automatically the new president, and it was all speculation in those days. No one knew. We just didn't have the communications network that we have now. Now it'd be on Facebook in 30 seconds and the whole world would know about it. In this room were 2 teletypes, one from AP and one from UPI. And after I came up here, after I got out of Charleston High School, my station manager ran a 75-foot cable from the control room back here and put me in a chair with the microphone right in front of me, and as the teletypes were printing, I was reading on the air. And they had a series of signals because you couldn't see the control room. They'd say, okay, cut, and they'd go to a commercial or something, and then they'd hand signal me again and I'd start talking again, and I did that for about 4 hours. And the door here, which is now closed, was a window at the time, and the window gave natural light to this room. But we are in the very back of the studio. Well, I was on the air reading and editing and doing that all weekend because I think it happened on a Friday. And I remember being up here the whole weekend because I was just a kid and didn't have anything to do. It was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life at that point, being 15 years old. So yeah, it was pretty cool, and I remembered it for 50 years like it was yesterday. When I was sitting in class in Mrs. June Wilkinson's 10th grade English class in the back of the room next to Carolyn Karp, who was a friend of mine, and they came over the intercom and said that President Kennedy had been shot and assassinated, and Carolyn started crying immediately, and she stood up and I stood up and we hugged each other, and she was almost inconsolable because it was so traumatic and dramatic. And
I was in the 8th grade, and I remember going in between classes, and somebody mentioned that the president had been shot, and I thought, oh gosh. One of the things as an 8th grader and a 7th grader that I did in classes was an impression of President Kennedy. So that was a really big shock for me. And the next class that I went to was speech class, and I remember the teacher set up a transistor radio in speech class, and everything was on hold, and we just sat there glued to the radio listening to what was being broadcast on the radio about it.
When Kennedy was killed, I was in elementary school. I was at Tiscawa Elementary. My teacher was Mrs. Downey. I don't remember who the principal was. It was a lady, and she actually went room to room and whispered in people's ear, the teacher's ear, that Kennedy had been assassinated. And I remember when Mrs. Downey made the announcement, there was a little black boy behind me, and he started crying and wailing and saying, "Not my Mr. President, not my Mr. President," and I have never forgotten that.